What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Podcast. Today we have Josh from Dave's Freshly Used here in Gainesville. Josh, you are the first guest we have from Gainesville. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so happy to have you on. So excited to hear your story. You're one of the best entrepreneurs as far as story-wise that we've heard, and we're so excited to get to know you a little bit more. So before we get started and asking you questions about your business, we, of course, have to go through our lightning round of warm-up questions. The first one is, what is the weirdest gift you have ever received?
So I brought it along with me. I actually just recently got this, and it's by far one of my favorite things that I own now. I got not only the 1992 Sugar Bowl jockstrap,
Let's
but
go.
I've got the 1995 Sugar Bowl jockstrap as well.
My gosh. You got to frame that somewhere, man.
Whenever I either want to frame them already and put them up on my wall, but if I ever get a store, it's the first thing that's going up. The guy claims that they weren't worn, but I still kind of keep them in a bag in the meantime.
Just take a sniff. I think that'll give it away.
Whenever I first took them out of the bag, I could kind of smell a little bit of a musky. I was like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I think, Anthony, correct me I think that's probably by far and we've asked this question not too many times, but definitely a handful of times. And that's, I think, the weirdest thing. Like
100%.
People have said like ornaments or like different gag gifts, but dude, a jockstrap, I don't care whose it's from, bro. That's weird.
The only thing that would make these better is, unfortunately, we lost both of these games. But the 92 was against Notre Dame and the 95 was against Florida State. But I mean, I love, like, the clothing is one thing, but the weird, obscure knickknacks, like people find, there's anything you can possibly imagine with a Gator branding on it, but most of that stuff was like mass produced, and for this to literally come off the jock of a player, like, how many of these are flown around?
Yeah, honestly, that's pretty insane, man. You got your hands on some real gold there, but oh my gosh, that's awesome. But let's move on to our next question. This is also one of my favorites, and I ask this question every time, and I mean, living in Miami, I don't know how many restaurants there are in Gainesville. Never been there. Definitely got to go up there. But at least in Miami, if you've ever been to Miami, if you're from Miami, there's so many restaurants to choose from. So this is honestly one of the hardest questions I've ever asked myself. But if you could only eat at one restaurant for the next year, 365 days, only one restaurant, which would it be? Doesn't have to be in Gainesville. It could be anywhere in the world.
So the lame answer is, my favorite restaurant from back home is called Hooligans. It's like a sports bar, but I mean, their wings alone I could eat for probably a month straight and I wouldn't get tired of them. But everything on their menu is fantastic. Once I start to put on a good 20 or 30 pounds, they have salads and stuff that I can switch over to. But
Nice.
yeah, I don't know.
So Josh, where's your hometown? Where is this located?
I'm from Daytona Beach, actually.
Daytona Beach. Okay, so Hooligans in Daytona Beach. Is there only one restaurant?
No, it's like a mini chain around there. So, fun fact, the guy who owns it, or one of the owners, like the big investor, is Gail Limerick, which you are probably familiar with. Gail Limerick Street that runs through Gainesville.
Yeah.
Or that runs through UF's campus.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so I'm going to flip the question now. Favorite restaurant in Gainesville? Help me out. Where should I go that I haven't been to yet?
Dude, so La Tienda was my go-to for a long time. I love La Tienda. My favorite places as of late, also La Tienda is one of those places where you can't go wrong with anything on the menu. I've been getting like the goat tongue burrito or something before, and that's amazing. But the last place that I ate at whenever I was there this weekend was Chopsticks, which is down on 13th, which like overlooks a lake. And I'd never actually eaten there before. I don't know how, but it was amazing. The pho was delicious. And then Satch Squared is fairly new, and I've been eating that like every other weekend now. It's so good.
Isn't it, Josh? Tell the people, isn't it so easy to gain weight in Gainesville?
Dude,
I can't be the only one.
the freshman 15 is
It's a
freshman
real
25.
thing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like freshman 25.
yeah.
It's for real.
It's so good. Have you been to? By the way, I've been to La Tienda, great Mexican food. But have you been to El Indio on 13th
Yes,
Street?
El Indio. I went through a very strong phase of going between those two, and I still eat there a lot. Their refried beans are amazing, and apparently they have really good hamburgers too. But I've never actually had them.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of my favorite places, Gabe. When you come to Gainesville, you gotta try it. It's Mexican, and it's so cool because it's a drive-through Mexican place. You can also sit there, but it's outdoors, like very authentic Mexican food. It's delicious, and I
Yeah,
live
the
right next to
Taco
it, which
Tuesday deal
doesn't
is
help.
Yeah,
legit.
I'm writing all these down, man. La Tienda, La Indio.
Everything.
I'm keeping note, man. Whenever I
Yeah.
head up there.
Awesome. That's awesome, Joshua. Now you made me hungry, so I'm probably gonna have to go to El Indio after this and
I was
grab a
just eating
bite or
my PB
something.
and J before this.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
All right. So Josh, let's get started here. Let's get to know you a little bit more. Get to know about your business. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then tell us about your business?
So my name is actually Josh or Dave, whatever you want to call me. Everybody asks where'd Dave come from. The story goes my handwriting was so bad in high school that my teacher got Dave Ritter out of Joshua Rittenour on the first day in my economics class. So that was then my name for the next 3 years was Dave, and I just started using it for like social media purposes. Like my Instagram was Dave Ritter, and it still is. But and then whenever I eventually started to come up with my name, I was just like, Dave like sounds so much better for naming purposes. And like whenever you're kind of like aware of it, you see so many Dave's businesses. Like I literally saw Dave's taxidermy last weekend, Dave's plumbing, Dave's electrical, whatever. It's just a really good like blue collar name, but Josh just doesn't flow as well. But yeah, so anyways, I don't know, I've been like going to flea markets and stuff with my family literally my whole life. Like whenever we go on trips to see my great grandmother up in Virginia, whenever I'm like 4 or 5, I have memories of going to the flea markets there. And then whenever my brothers were in high school, I would drive around with them. They're older than me, like 6 and 8 years older than me. So whenever they were in high school, I'd go around to thrift stores with them. And then whenever I eventually got my own car and I was in high school, I started going out on my own looking for stuff. And, I just looked for cool, interesting things for myself. And eventually I started to, I've always been a big sports fan. I've always been a big Gators fan, Orlando Magic fan. I would start looking for those things for myself. But then I was coming across all this other stuff that I didn't necessarily want, but I thought my friends might be into. So I'd start like flipping that to them just to kind of like fund my own collection, because I never really liked asking my parents for like money or an allowance. And I never had, or they wouldn't let me get an actual job in high school because they're like, school comes first. So I kind of just continued that into college. And whenever I got into UF, then it just like became full on everything Gators from there. And, I was just looking for everything Gators. And I mean, I eventually got so much that I would have to start selling the Gators stuff because, you got to learn to pick and choose what's actually like most important to you. So I would start flipping it to other people, and, it just kind of started to pick up. And I don't know, I kind of found myself going to thrift stores and like scouring the internet more than like I was showing up to class. And like at the time, there wasn't any vintage markets or anything in Gainesville. Like those weren't a thing. It wasn't until like literally my last semester that kind of the first one of that happened. And I don't know, it was really cool. And while I was in college, I had a job at Publix, or I worked at Publix for like 4 years. And, I'm selling stuff on eBay and online and whatnot. And I started to realize, I'm like, dude, I'm literally making more in a day online than my week's paycheck at Publix, and I'm working like
Wow.
40 hours a week. I'm like, why am I
Wow.
even working this job? I
Mm.
was working it because they did tuition reimbursement. It is a great job if you're in college. They'll
Oh
pay for
yeah.
your school. So I got to give the Publix plug. But yeah, I don't know. And then, so my original, I was economics the entire time I was in college, but I was also doing pre-dental at the same time. I was like, economics will be my backup, but I want to try and become an orthodontist. Well, I did that for like 3 years, and I would not recommend that to anybody because it was horrible with the overlap. But I finally just kind of made the decision one day of like, I don't want, like, whenever I picture myself in 10 years, like, I see myself doing this, like flipping clothes to people. Like, I don't see myself cleaning people's teeth. Like, I didn't want to do that. So I don't know. I was kind of like, I just didn't want to disappoint my parents for a while. And I just kind of lied to myself for a while. But finally, one day I was just like, all right, like, this is it. Like, I'm going to get my degree, I'm going to graduate. But whenever I'm done, like, this is what I want to do full time. And here we are 5 years later, 4 years later, whatever. I graduated in 2017, however many years later.
Nice, man. I love your story, and I find it so interesting. And you know, we've had so many people on this podcast as well that a lot of their businesses either come and are born out of like these side hustles, or like just like these things that they do as a passion, right? Like you mentioned, you started just sourcing these clothes and these shirts that are vintage for yourself, stuff that you just love to wear that you thought was really interesting, and it came to a point where you started to realize that this was something that you could actually flip and make money off of. But if it wasn't for you actually doing that to begin with and doing it for yourself and actually finding the love for it, I don't think your business would be where it is today. And I just admire that so much, because a lot of people today ask me, hey, like what business should I get into, or what should I do with my life, or what startup should I invest in today? And it's like a lot of times it's just look around and kind of be interested in what you're actually doing. And if you actually are self-aware and what like the things that you're actually interested in, some of these business ideas can actually be born out of that. But Dave, my question to you, and I'm sorry if I call you Dave, Josh, probably going to be going back and forth this whole
Dude, I
podcast.
answered it both in public. I hear Dave and I go, huh?
Yeah. So my question to you, with all that being said, I mean, like you mentioned, it's been 5 years now that you've been doing this, and Dave's your store is so, I'm sure, well known, especially in the Gainesville area. Your social media is blowing up. You've created a name for yourself, created a brand for yourself. But I'm sure not every day was easy. I'm sure maybe some days you weren't making that much on a day on eBay, or maybe you had some days that you lost money. What were some of the challenges and the obstacles that you had to jump through in order to become the successful entrepreneur you are today?
Just honestly kind of getting people to like get it. Like, to this day, people still don't get it. Vintage is definitely more prevalent now, and it's a huge thing. Like, vintage is taking over streetwear and fashion and like the market as we know it. But I've been doing this for like, I'm jokingly an old head. People call, people that have been doing it for a long time like old heads, but like I really am, because whenever I first started doing this, like, not a lot of people were. And the comments that I would get at markets and whenever I'd sell stuff is like, so it's used? And I'm like, yeah, but that's like not really the point. And they're like, well, I can buy that, I can buy this at, Walmart for this. I'm like, well, you can't, because this doesn't exist anymore. This is 20 years old. And I still get those comments every day, more so just with like old people, because like they don't get it. But like years ago, whenever I would do these markets, I would have something out, and it was just kind of like the flea market mentality of like, the price isn't the price. I would tell somebody, $50, and they're like, cool, would you take 15? And I'm like, no. Or I would kind of wiggle with it. But now, like, 95% of the time, whenever I tell somebody a price, well, I tag all my stuff, but whenever they see the price, they're like, cool, great, yeah, because they get it, like, they know. And the other big comment is like, oh, well, I can find this myself. Where'd you get this? Goodwill? And it's not that simple. I really don't like, I source in a lot of different ways, but like, I get my stuff in a lot of really creative ways, but it's not that easy. I tell people, I'm like, all right, good luck, go for it. And once they kind of realize that it's not that simple, they understand like why I'm asking what I'm asking. Like my curated collection and what I offer, like I'm not only offering you the product, I'm offering you the service of, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been building relationships with people for 10 years. Like I've gone through the trouble of finding it, hand washing it. Like my whites, whenever I clean them, it's a over 24-hour process. Like a
Wow.
lot of effort goes in from like me getting it to you actually getting to enjoy it. Like, and people are like finally understanding that and seeing that. And that was really kind of one of the big things. And then the other thing is completely different, but people seeing me like, yes, I'm a business, but I consider myself more than that. Like, I kind of consider myself like it is a museum in a way. Like, what I have, aside from the University of Florida, like, I probably have the world's largest private collection of vintage University of Florida memorabilia. So, other podcasts and people, I've approached them and been like, hey, I'd love to be on your show as a guest, kind of talk about what I do. I could, do show and tell, whatever. I think our demographics are kind of the same. I think you'd appreciate it. I'm not a former player or a sports analyst by any means, but I think what I do is pretty interesting. And I think your people would appreciate that too. And they're like, cool. Would you like to sponsor us? And I'm like, no. I don't know. So like getting people to see me more than a business, like, I don't know. I'm kind of like in a gray area because like what I did, I really did kind of create a job, and it's kind of more than just like, whatever towing company sponsoring the University of Florida. I don't know.
Right. It's the idea of you're not selling people merchandise. Really, it's going beyond that. It's an artwork, right?
Yeah.
You're selling people an artwork, and until people buy into that message, they won't get it, like you're saying. So that's a very significant struggle, I think, as an entrepreneur to have, because that's like, okay, how am I going to brand myself? Did in these last 5 years, have you ever had any doubts of, oh, maybe this might not work as I thought it would be? Did you ever have that self-doubt as an entrepreneur with your business within these last 5 years?
Oh, every day. I mean, like, trust me, whenever I see my credit card bills of like what I'm spending on stuff, and I see the mounds of stuff, and I'm like, why do I have this much? Like, what if I can't sell this stuff? Why am I doing this? I put all this, I'll do drops where I put in, a week plus of effort, and it just kind of like flops because, Instagram stopped showing my stuff, or just people aren't buying it. And like, it's a real struggle. But then there's just like those moments that, you kind of realize why you're doing it. And I've learned you've got to like invest in yourself sometimes, and kind of like take that risk in yourself. Like, it's an investment for the future. And I don't know. My method is, or my mindset has always been like, I use the hardware store example. If a hardware store runs out of hammers, they can call up their supplier and they can get hammers anytime they want. With the whole supply chain thing going on right now, I guess it's a little bit different, but you get the idea. For me, my stuff, it's not being made. I don't make it. I have to find it. So whenever I find it, I have to buy it. So like, I'm putting out a lot of money. So, because whenever that opportunity does come, I want to have that. And that opportunity really just came to me, or one of these opportunities, just a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you saw it on my Instagram, but I had the opportunity to work with Florida Gators football program, and they hit me up, and they were like, we want to do a I kind of pitched the idea to them. It's a whole story, but I was able, in short, to supply a bunch of stuff for their recruits to do photos. They wanted to do a vintage photo shoot with all these, high schoolers coming to UF trying to get persuaded, to come play there. And they wanted to do vintage photo shoots with them. They were like, okay, we need X amount of pieces. Can you supply that? I said, absolutely. I've got it. And that's kind of why I've made that investment of having all this stuff on hand, because if an opportunity presents itself, I want to say like, yes, I have it. I don't want to be then, struggling to find the stuff. I don't know. I kind of
Yeah.
went on a tangent there. I
No, you're
forget
good.
the original question.
I think it's again just unique, and your business, any product based business is so capital intensive, and yours in particular, because it's not something that you can just buy in bulk from, a manufacturer that you can buy thousands of pieces at once and it gets delivered to your doorstep. Not only does it cost more, but I'm sure it takes a lot of your time. My question to you is, and I completely respect the fact if you don't want to give any of your secrets out, but what does that sourcing process look like for you? Like, is that what you do like Monday through Friday? You kind of just hit up different vintage shops or like different places. How do you find some of this stuff? Because I've seen your collection and it is deep, bro.
It's
It
fire.
is pretty, yeah,
It's fire.
it is
I
intense. And I just want to know, because I go, maybe thrifting a couple times with my girlfriend and stuff, and I have no luck, bro. I don't know how you do it, but just give me a little point. Give me some pointers. What do you do?
Bro, so I tell everybody finding it is really like the full-time job in itself.
Mm,
Like whenever I say
mm.
I've been, working on these relationships for the past 10 years, like I really have been. Like there's people that I've been like, paying my way in, like showing them like, if you get Gators stuff, I have the money. I will buy it. I don't want you selling it to other people. Like, I am here with the money. When you find it, let me know. And it's kind of just like, you got to start out just whenever they give you a price. Okay, sure, cool. Here's it. I just try and make it as easy as possible. But really, like, I don't personally thrift my stuff that much anymore. Like I go out to thrift stores here and there just kind of looking for like other stuff, like the non-Gators, other side of the business stuff. But as for Gators stuff, like I'm traveling around to markets throughout the state. Like this weekend coming up, I'm driving up to Atlanta. There's a big convention going on up there. I'll get to network, hopefully buy some stuff off of people. But really it's coming from like other pickers. Like luckily vintage is so big now that there's all these other vintage dealers that kind of just deal in more broad things. But since I've kind of become known as the vintage gator guy, a lot of people, as they find things, they just kind of hit me up and I buy it off of them. And there's a lot of people that buy from rag houses where it's these giant warehouses where they're picking through bales of clothes, like literally thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of clothes. They pick through it, they're getting it for pennies. They're then selling it to wholesale buyers, and then I'm then buying it from those people. So sometimes by the time I've gotten things, it's changed hands like 2 or 3 times. So it's getting really, you just have to get creative. I try and buy things from former players and teammates whenever I can. I have packages coming in from all over the country, all over the world. Like I get stuff from Taiwan and Japan and,
Oh my gosh.
countries overseas. Like pretty regularly. Like
Yeah.
it's everywhere. Like whenever they say the Gator Nation is everywhere, like
Mm,
you're not joking. It's kind of crazy where this stuff ends up sometime, but like I like literally from the time I wake up, I'm on my
mm.
phone until the time I go to bed. Like I'm just looking.
That Josh, that is so impressive, and hopefully I should have worn the bomber jacket that I bought from you because it is, Gabe, did you see it? I think I showed you.
I did
It
see
is
it.
sick.
I did
That
see
that
it.
was that was
I'm
amazing.
jealous.
It is so nice. The first thing I did was snap it to Gabe and all my close friends because I love it. And I'll post it in like maybe the the notes of this or on Instagram later. It's just so nice, and the quality of it, and it was just a great experience buying that product from you,
No,
Josh.
I'm glad you love it, man. And I always tell people,
Yeah,
like, there's a reason why this stuff is here 30 or 40 years later. Like, it was built to last.
yeah,
They do not make stuff like they used to.
right. It's insane, and you're sharing your story here, and I'm thinking, how did you know to do all this? How did you know that you had to establish your network in order to be so successful? Did you have a mentor or someone maybe in the business that you admired that kind of taught you the ropes, or did you just learn from trial and error, failure after failure? How did you establish yourself? Because I'm trying to think of someone who's listening right now, and just saying like, wow, like you moved successfully so quickly at such a fast pace. Like you kind of just knew where to go and who to talk to. Tell us a little bit about that. Did you have anyone that guided you, or did you learn it all yourself?
Like, as far as a business mentor, like, for a long time, it was really just kind of like from a distance seeing other people. Like, there were the big names in vintage before me, like Slobby Robbie of Generation Cool, Mr. Throwback, and New York Round Two, like these big companies that, I myself wanted to emulate, but nobody was really doing what I was doing of just one very specific things, because I'm kind of hypocritical whenever I say it, but I always tell people, like, don't limit yourself, but then I'm literally limiting myself to like one very niche market. And it didn't come along until I started. This guy hits me up on eBay, and he's like, "Hey, I want all your FSU stuff." And he always jokes around that he's like, "Dude, you were kind of a dick whenever I first met you, because like I told him, I'm like, oh, I buy this stuff wholesale. I can't really wholesale. Like, these are my prices."
Nice.
And then he hits me up on Instagram, Junkman Doug, who, if you've seen me talk about him, he's my FSU counterpart. Like, we just kind of instantly clicked, because everybody's like, "Oh, how can you be friends with an FSU guy?" And I'm like, because I just really love vintage. And if somebody's really passionate about something, like, I love to see that. And we instantly hit it off, and he's 2 or 3 years older than me, and I joke with him that he stole my business from me, but he's like, "I never even knew about you. Like, you're crazy." Because he started doing it several years after me, but he claims he had never seen my page. But we kind of became each other's business mentors. Like, since we don't directly interfere with each other, I mean, we're now like, a day doesn't go by where we're not like on the phone talking with each other, just kind of like bouncing ideas off of each other. And I tell him he's the one who ruined my life, because he's kind of the one who made me just go like full on investing anything into buying this stuff. Because like, I was still very much like the Gator guy, but what I owned back then was nowhere near what I have now. And he kind of gave me the mentality of like, "Dude, buy it when you get it." And he is definitely my biggest business mentor in this, of just like, like I said, we talk every day, and he gives me ideas, I give him ideas. And like, if anybody follows both of our pages, like, you can just very see that they're very, very similar. It's the same but different.
That's so awesome, and I love the question about the mentorship, and that was something I was really interested in because, again, like I said, I'm very much into vintage and all this, but I've never really seen. I mean, I know Depop. I'm sure you're familiar with that, and that
Yeah.
popped up some time ago, and that was one of the factors that might have put vintage where it is today, and all these different applications and different things that are really putting vintage where they deserve in the clothing and the fashion industry. But I had never seen anyone doing it like to the extent that you are. And I was like, as Anthony was asking that question, I'm like, who could he learn from? Because this guy, I feel like, is one of the first ones doing it, right? And you're really revolutionizing the way people look at vintage. And my next question to you is, and I think you mentioned it, you touched on it for a second there, is how you were able to niche down on a market, yes, you might have been limiting yourself, but there's so many, conversations, and it might even be controversial to some people about, niching down on a specific thing. How important do you think it was for you to like kind of hone in and hyper focus on Gator and UF merch and vintage stuff? How much do you think it really impacted your business?
Oh, so much. Like, I tell people, make your market. Like, you can, I don't know, this sounds like bad in a way, but like I could grind out and, do eBay and just not care, just solely be about the money. And I could probably be making a lot more money just doing that, selling random things, whatever. But in a way, I wanted to be known for something. And like Gators is what I love. And the passion shows. Like I tell everybody, make your market, but do it in what you're passionate about. Because I'm like, oh, I've jokingly said, oh, nobody sells Georgia, vintage Georgia Bulldog stuff. I could do that. But I would get tired of that so quickly because people would see that I don't care, and I wouldn't. Like I would have no effort for it. And you've just got to do what you're passionate about. Like some people just really do just care about the paycheck at the end of the day. And that's all right, but you got to remember that you're doing this for a long time. Like, one guy came up with the idea for an axe throwing building, and now you see one in every
Yeah.
city across America.
Yeah.
Like one person comes up with an idea and then somebody says, "Oh, I
Mm.
bet I could make money doing that." But
Mm.
like you got to be doing that for a long time. Like, I really hope you like throwing axes that much. So, I don't know. If you're passionate about what you do, you'll find a way to make it work. And that's what I
Mm.
did. Like, people see my passion and I show them why these things are cool, and they appreciate that.
Mm.
And I don't know. Make
Yeah.
like make your market. If you're passionate about it, you'll make it work.
And your energy and your passion seeps through. Like just this conversation, when I met you at the market, you were so kind, because I know that day was really windy and you were packing up because everything was flying everywhere, and you were kind enough to let me go through your van and look at the shirts, and I finally ended up buying one. Your energy is just there. Like I can tell you're very invested into Gator stuff. You're a reliable source. I know that what you're selling is going to be good. It's going to be good quality. I never have to second guess it. And that's such an important lesson that you just talked about, because I feel like a lot of people try to be in every market. Oh, I'm Orlando Magic, and then FSU and UF and Miami Heat. I got it all. I'm the vintage guy. Like I got it all.
That's
But
where I was trying to circle to. So,
yes, go ahead.
like vintage selling is huge.
Hmm.
Like there's no shortage of people online reselling,
Hmm.
but to kind of hyper focusing on one thing has helped me to gain a
Hmm.
following.
Hmm.
Because if you like Indiana Pacers and you follow a random vintage page, it's
Hmm.
just as they're finding stuff. You could follow
Hmm.
them for 3 years before they find some Indiana Pacers thing.
Right, right.
But
Hmm.
if you like Florida Gators, cool. What do you want? Polos, jackets, crew necks? What size do you need? What color do you need? Like
Mm.
I have everything.
Mm.
If you're looking for something, there is a very good chance that I have it. And that's
Hmm.
where hyper focusing on something has helped me out in this, because
Hmm.
it's helped me to be able to gain a following instead of just kind of like, hoping
Mm.
that I find something that somebody needs in their size.
Mm. Exactly. It's that mindset of being really, really good at one thing in one market rather than being average in 50. Like it makes more
Exactly.
sense. I agree 100% with you. And as we wrap up here, Dave, what mindset should young entrepreneurs have? Right, we're here at the Mindset Podcast. What we like to promote is the mindset. Right, changing people's mindsets. As an entrepreneur, as someone who has a successful business, what advice would you give to a young entrepreneur who maybe already got started or is looking to get started in any business? What's the mindset they should have?
Kind of really what I was saying, just about like make your market. If you're passionate about it, find a way to make it work. Like if you just really love 5K, running 5K marathon t-shirts, and that's what you want to sell, great. Make it happen. Show people why it's as cool as you think it's cool. And then the other thing is the worst somebody can say is no. Obviously, like don't be annoying, but like some of the best opportunities that I've had in doing stuff is just cold calling and, putting my name out there, and not necessarily like faking it until I made it, but, fluffing up the resume a little bit here and there just to, make yourself sound as good as you think you are. But yeah, the worst somebody can say is no. Like, shoot your shot. Like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, like, you've got to be able to talk to people. I don't know, like, start talking to people. Go to your local flea market and just try haggling with somebody. Like, you got to get that. You got to be able to just like shoot your shot with people and get. I don't know. Be friendly.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you got to get back to the basics. Sometimes people think that there's like this special formula to being a business owner and entrepreneur, but Anthony and I always like to say it's one about being kind, being yourself, and learning the skills that come along with it. But man,
Yeah,
Dave, you're
I
doing it.
know. I know we're trying to wrap it up, but dude,
No, you're good.
that is the biggest thing ever. Being nice and pleasant in this is the biggest thing ever. Like on the eBay side of things, people will hit me up and they will just like the messages that you get are insane. People wanting to buy something off of me will be like, there's no way this is worth this. You're lucky that I'm offering you this. Like, you need to take it. I'm like, why would I ever work with you? On the flip side of that, people will message me and be like, hey man, I really like this item, but this is just what I have right now. If there's any room that you could work on it, let me know. And I'm like, hey, I appreciate it. I'd be willing to do this. And they're like, great, I can do that. If you're not being nice in this goes such a long way.
Absolutely. Yep. And especially in business, there's like this negative connotation to like it's being super cutthroat and just rude and cold. But we're here to turn that table, man, and you're crushing it with that, and you're definitely setting that example, Dave. Before we go, what do you think Dave's Freshly Used? Where do you think that'll be in the next 5 years? Do you see how yourself having like your own pop up shop, your own location? I know Anthony mentioned you have like a van. Where do you see yourself going in the next couple of years?
I mean, I'd love to have a brick and mortar store one day with my fiance being in med school. It's a little bit of traveling around with her right now, and I'm very fortunate that with the business that I do, I'm able to do that with her. But I would love to have a brick and mortar store, and something that I've jokingly said, but something I've really been kind of manifesting in a way is like, I want to be the official vintage supplier of the University of Florida. I'm like,
let's go.
If there's an official tow company of them, the official soft drink, there's an official whatever. I'm like, why can't I be the official vintage supplier of them? And, I think I'm one step closer with, getting to do these recruit photos. So make it happen.
That's huge. And Dave, I can't let you go without doing the Gator Chomp. We got to let them know.
Go Gators, baby.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. This would be a really fun episode for people to, this is at the end, but hopefully you saw this on YouTube rather than listen to it, because you got to see the show and tell that Dave showed us in the beginning. But thank you all so much for tuning in. Dave, where can we find you? Did you mention that yet? Instagram? Where can we find
Instagram, Dave's Freshly Used. Twitter, it's Dave's Freshly USD. Those are the two big ones. I think I'm on TikTok as well. I'm trying to get that going again.
Let's go.
Yeah, Instagram, Twitter, check me out. That's where I post all my upcoming markets and stuff. Oh, my website, davesfreshlyused.com. If you want to get your own vintage Gator goodies, you can shop my site there.
Let's go. There we go. All right, thank you so much.
No, thank you guys. It was a pleasure.